individuals, 3 people that are alive today that you want to have personal access to for advice, for connections, for guidance, for resources, who would those 3 people be? So try to think of 3 people that are living today, and that could be in different categories, right? So from a deen perspective, sometimes we want to have access to scholars that I can just go and, take my question, take my issue, and then say, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about this? Which of the paths should I take? Is this better or is that better? It could be for people looking to get married. It could be people who have a lot of connections, and they can say, look, so imagine if you knew somebody who knew a lot of sisters, right, from the city, and you say, okay, look, I'm trying to get married, and I want such and such person. Do you have any recommendations? Or vice versa, right, for opposite gender as well. You're trying to start a business, and you want to go to someone, say, I want to, can you introduce me to some potential clients? Can you introduce me to some investors or, partners, right? Likewise for health as well. So, I have this health issue in my family, for myself, and, I want to reach out to you directly and get health-related advice. So it will be good if we can think of 3 individuals like that we would like to have that sort of personal connection, personal access. That what we do essentially is that they would become our personal allies, right? So if I need help, I can call on to them, I can ask them for their advice, and obviously this is from the permissible advice, permissible seeking advice that, that there's nothing wrong with that, and our deen permits that. Also, to the extent that if someone were to have any sort of enmity against us, someone were to oppose us or fight us or try to deceive us, try to cheat us, they will actually personally take it personally, and they would take them as personal enemies just because, somebody is an enemy of yours. Your connection would say, hey, you know what? Because you don't like this person, you try to harm him, you try to cheat him, I'm going to take you as my own personal enemy as well. Okay? So hopefully, we can think of something from this dunya to help us connect to the rest of the discussion, inshallah. Okay, clear so far? All right. Okay, so having said that, what we'll be talking about today is not about the creation, but about the creator. How would it be? What are some of the simple steps that we can take so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us as a personal friend? Meaning that if someone were to harm us, someone were to oppose us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that person, that group, that team, whatever, as an enemy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will declare a war against them, and Allah will protect us from them. Right? How would it be if Allah was to love us? Right? And how would it be if Allah were to promise that whatever you ask, I will give you, and whatever you seek refuge in, I will give you refuge. Right? So you want protection from something, you ask Allah for protection from that thing that you're fearing or you're afraid of or you're concerned about it, Allah will protect you. And it's a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So how would that be? And if it were to be some very basic steps, simple life, simple basic steps that were make us able to get this sort of promise and this sort of alliance and this sort of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is what we'll be talking about today, and that is hadith number 38. And he said that قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى, again this is one of the hadith Qudsi as well, just like last time. إن الله تعالى قال من عادى لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب. So whoever takes a wali, an ally of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as an enemy, Allah has declared a war against that person. Right? So if someone were to take, hate, oppose, take an enemy who is a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will personally declare a war against that person or that group or whatever, right? And then it continues, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افترضت عَلَيْهِ. And the person, my slave, does not get close to me, does not come close to me, does not raise his status with me, except by the things that I've made obligatory on him, right, or her. So the most important thing, the most powerful thing, the most the fastest things that get us close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the things that Allah has made obligatory upon us. And then it continues and it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَا يَزَالُ عَبْدِي يَتَقَرَّبْ إِلَيَّ بِالنَّوَافِلِ حَتَّى أُحِبَّهُ. And the person does not cease to come closer and closer and increase his status above and above with me with the voluntary good deeds until I love him. Okay, so this is the recipe, this is the path that Allah loves the servant, and this is how he gets to that status. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُهُ, and when I love him, كُنْتُ سَمْعَهُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهِ, I become his hearing by which he hears. وَبَصَرَهُ الَّذِي يُبْصِرُ بِهِ, and I become his eyesight by which he sees. وَيَدَهُ الَّتِي يَبْطِشُ بِهَا, and his hands by which he strikes. وَرِجْلَهُ الَّتِي يَمْشِي بِهَا, and his legs by which he walks. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلَنِي لَأُعْطِيَنَّ, and if he were to ask me, I will surely give him. وَلَئِنْ إِسْتَعَاذَنِي لَأُعِيذَنَّ, so if he were to seek refuge in me from something, I will certainly, definitely grant him that refuge. This is in Bukhari. So, pretty interesting, right? That's a pretty interesting status to have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we becoming an ally of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loving us, and any enemy, anything, any group, any party, any person that is opposing us, taking us as an enemy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that person as enemy. And if we were to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something, Allah were to give it to us. And if we were to seek protection in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from something, Allah will give that to us. So that is a pretty powerful status to be in. And then, so that's why I asked us to think about some sort of a worldly example, to think of how it would be if we were to have that sort of worldly connections. Now imagine if we were to elevate that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how things would be. So we'll start talking about this notion of,